Only one group dares to challenge this intergalactic threat, the Super Friends.
Hey everybody, Rez the Collector here with another episode of Reviews on Demand. This review was requested by none other than the great Superman guru of YouTube himself, Stuart. As you know him, Stu Murray 47. He had mentioned seeing the Kingdom Come Flash in the background of a lot of my videos and wanted to get a closer look at him. So, I decided to go ahead and pull him, and while I was doing that, I decided to go ahead and grab the Kingdom Come Kid Flash as well. I have them both. Why not do it as the video as a pair? So, let's go ahead and start off with the Flash. Now, with this being a Kingdom Come, of course, this was an Elseworlds, where we took a look at the future of all of our heroes and what was going on. This, of course, is the Wally West version of the Flash. And he, as you can see, is wearing a Jay Garrick-esque helmet. It has very large gold wings on it. Now, this Wally West had two children, Barry and Iris West. Kid Flash, of course, as you saw, was Iris. And he, at this point, never leaves the Speed Force, which is why the figure is just this red, translucent figure with really not any detail other than that helmet. And that's because he's not even wearing boots anymore. He's just basically, he's naked, and he's running around naked, saving people. And that's pretty much all he does. He leaves like vibrational messages, how the Flash can vibrate through walls. He learned to basically leave these messages where he would just kind of appear to his children and say, "I love you, good night," without ever really stopping. And he would do this between milliseconds, running around the city, just saving people, just staying completely in the Speed Force. But, you know, every millisecond he'd stop by the house and do another part of the message instead of actually stopping and talking and spending time with his children. And they do this really well in the comic. You see it's a nice blurry image, and I've actually read the comic. I know you're like, Rez, you don't read anything. You can't read. Well, thank you so much for pointing out. No. I haven't read a lot of comics since, basically since the Return of Superman. I got a little older and a lot poorer. So I couldn't afford comics anymore. So I stopped collecting at that point. But I've read a few things here and there. I've gotten quite a few things digitally since then, and this was one of the books that I had picked up. And I do actually have this in paper form. But it was very cool the way they did this in the storyline, that Wally never stops. Never comes out of the Speed Force at all. And this, of course, causes a lot of strife with his family, especially his children, Barry and Iris, of course, named after his Aunt Iris and the second Flash, Barry Allen. And it ends up causing Iris to leave him one of these vibrational messages, basically, and she ends up going... I think they go back in time. She goes with the son of the Batman, big long name, not Damian. I don't think it was supposed to be Damian. I don't think Damian had been conceived of yet. But ends up going back with him and a few other characters. They end up in Guy Gardner's Warriors restaurant. I don't remember if it was called Warriors or not. I probably should have did a little research. I'm sorry, Stuart. You probably know a lot more about this than I do, and you're probably just like, shut up and get to the figure. And I would have done that with a Scottish accent, but the only one I can do is Connery, and yeah, anyway. So, for anybody else who's not Stuart, they end up going back, some crap happens, and yeah, that didn't really help you at all, did it? Crap happens, yay! Great, you summed that up for us, Rez. Let's take a look at the figure. all of the Kingdom Come figures have next to zero articulation. They are almost statues. The little bit of articulation they do have is the shoulder and hip, and that is it. There is no bend at the elbow, there is no bend at the knee, there is no wrist. Oh, I'm sorry, head. They also have a peg head that goes back and forth. None of this looking around stuff, up or down, just back and forth. Now, on most of these figures, that's fine. I'm completely good with that. When it comes to Wally and Iris, though, being Flashes, I think they should have given them, at the very least, knee and elbow. Because you can't pose these figures in any way other than museum. Iris at least comes in a dynamic pose, which looks great, but you have to have a stand with her. If you are very good at balancing things, you can get her to balance, but she's not going to stay that way. If anything bumps your case, your shelf, wherever you have her, she is going to fall. There's no way to stop it. Just the way they designed her, she basically has to have a stand. But let's take a look at Wally first. As you can see, he is made of a translucent plastic, which is very much a good way to show him, because that's the way he's depicted in the comic, as just this red blur always moving. As I said, for head articulation, all we have is back and forth. There is no up or down. I know you're seeing a little, like, almost up and down there, but that's just because his head's a little loose. It's not actual articulation. And then, of course, we've got up and down on the arms. Sorry about that, guys. I got a phone call. And, of course, I film with my phone. So, up and down on the arms. Now, honestly, I wish they would have just given us absolutely no leg articulation whatsoever. Because the best you're going to get to making him look natural in any way with leg movement is this. Because otherwise, it just goes... And that's... If they were going to give us this little of articulation in the legs, they might as well have just given us no leg articulation whatsoever. And basically, they should have just made him a statue. I mean, he'd make a very cool statue. But he is a cool figure overall. I've always loved this version of the Flash. I've always been a Flash fan. For a long time there, I wasn't even collecting Superman comics. I was just collecting Flash. I went through phases. Flash, Green Lantern, Batman. Superman was always there in the background, but for a while I'd concentrate just on one character at a time. But I've always loved Flash. I was really disappointed with the New 52 that Wally wasn't in it, and I know that they're brought in some version of Wally, but I don't really know what that's all about. I could probably do some research and find out, but Wally, Barry was the Flash for what? They brought him back out. Silver Age, what started in... God, when did the Silver Age start? Was that the 50s or 60s? I think we had Barry's version of the Flash for 20, 25 years. Maybe even 30. But I think that's pushing it. And then we had Wally. From 1985 on, from the Crisis on Infinite Earths on, we had Wally West. And for a lot of people... he was the Flash, and I was actually really kind of disappointed with DC because they brought Barry back. And I know a lot of people wanted, well, some of the older generation wanted Barry back, but Barry was the big name that you could point to in comic books that they killed off, and he stayed dead. And it wasn't until the Rebirth that they brought Barry back, and then of course, Barry was the one that brought about the whole Flashpoint, where the whole universe changed and we got the whole New 52. So I guess there's a lot of people who hate the New 52. I guess you can blame them on bringing Barry Allen back. Had Barry Allen stayed dead, we would still have Wally West and the classic DC universe. So yeah, I really wish that they had left Barry dead. I mean, not that I have come to peace with the New 52. I didn't care for some of the costumes at first. Everything really had to grow on me. I'm older, so I'm set in my ways, and it wasn't really meant for me. It was meant for them to try and draw in the younger crowds. But screw younger people. I want what I want. But I guess we've got Wally back, and then there's that whole 5-year jump they've done in New 52, and supposedly if the timeline doesn't change, in 5 years Wally's going to die, and I don't get it. I would really have to really start looking at the comics to understand what's going on, but I wish that they had left. I wish they'd left Wally alone. He was one of my favorite characters. Especially if you like the Wally from the DC Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. That version of Wally was almost like a mixture of Barry and Wally. It was Wally's personality and look, but he had aspects of Barry. He was a forensic police scientist like Barry was, but he had Wally's personality. Basically, Wally, like even they touch on in those episodes, Wally was like the heart and soul of the Justice League. The whole Justice Lords thing came about because Wally was killed, and he was the heart and soul, and they ended up turning into the Justice Lords and blah blah blah. And Wally's kind of DC's Spider-Man. He's the younger guy who's quick-witted and funny and always there with the joke. Barry was always very taciturn. He was a police scientist, and he didn't have that good-natured. I mean, not that Barry wasn't good-natured, he was, but he didn't have that younger, good-natured quality to him that Wally did. So there's that. And I've rambled on long enough. None of you probably wanted to hear any of that, so I apologize. But let's take one good last look here at Wally, and then we're going to switch over to Iris real quick. So as you can see, he's not wearing any boots. He's completely nude. Apparently, he was castrated at some point. Maybe that's what the Speed Force does to you. I don't know. The helmet is awesome. The gold wings are just gigantic. And I love the Jay Garrick-esque helmet. I do miss it. Yeah, my Popeye. I can't even go on. Jeez, I miss it. I do miss the yellow on the body, but of course, with this there wasn't any. So I'm just gonna move on before I miss anything else. On to Iris. Iris, the same. At least she has the more dynamic of a pose, but like I said, she requires a stand, or else she's going to fall. And while she also has the same articulation at the hip, again, there's really no point to it. And even the arms there's really no point to the arms either, because the way they did the leather jacket, if you have her arm in any way, shape, or form moved away from the coat, moved away from basically here, then it looks weird. It's weird looking, because it's just like she just has this leather piece that's not attached to anything. So you kind of have to have her at least have that arm in this position. You can do whatever you want with this one, and then you kind of have to have the legs I mean, you can do a couple different things with this leg, but the best way to have it is just kind of have it down like that. So basically, I mean, really the only articulation that you can get on her for really posing is her left arm. The right one kind of has to stay to match the coat. You can move that one. The legs you can't really do much with because otherwise they're not going to look right. And of course she does have a head swivel on just a normal head peg. So they really limited us with these figures, with the Kingdom Come figures, but these are more statuesque figures than anything else. So I'm fine with that because they look good just standing side by side. You can tell that this version of Wally has become more taciturn like Barry had, and then we've got the thrill-seeking younger Iris here that's just out there having a good time, and you can tell that by the sculpt of the figure. And they are very well sculpted. Let's get just a nice 360 on her real quick. And I've always been a huge fan of Kid Flash in the many forms that Kid Flash has taken. I loved Wally when he was Kid Flash. He's my favorite Kid Flash. He was my favorite Flash. Sadly, I think Barry's third because I really love the Jay Garrick Flash as well. But I've always been a huge fan of Kid Flash, and I definitely will be picking up the New Titans, New Teen Titans, New 52 Kid Flash at some point. I don't have the money to do it right now, but I definitely will be picking up that figure because it's a must-have for me. But this, guys, was another review on demand. Stay tuned for the table dance of the day. We've got a nice special one coming up for you guys. This, of course, is Rez the Collector. I do want to thank you very much for staying with me and watching this video. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.